and welcome to I Wrote That. My name is Larissa Soehn and I am your host, and during this solo episode today I will be discussing what it took to write my first book, The Defender. So I'll back up a couple of years. It was almost 2 years ago now that I left my corporate position and took a medical leave of absence for depression. And at the time I was very lost in the world. I didn't know what brought me joy anymore. My daughter was 3, my marriage was going well, everything was on the outside very, very good, but I was suffering from severe burnout from my corporate position. And it just got to the point where I couldn't work anymore. I couldn't manage the workload, the house load, the mental health workload, all of it. It was all just too much. I couldn't do it anymore. And I felt really guilty for that. I struggled a lot with not being able to manage what it looked like everybody else was managing just fine. And so anyways, I ended up taking time off, not by choice, by force. I physically couldn't work anymore. And it took me about 8 months to get to a spot where I was ready to, I had to do something to help myself. Like I was getting the medical help that I needed, but it was time that I stepped up and found something. And at the time, my husband and I, before I went on leave, we were running a side business, an Etsy business where we made escape room games for kids. And I thought, okay, I'll start writing another game. I'll start making another game. And it came to a point where I was about 10,000 words into this game, and I said to my husband, I was like, I don't think this is a game, I think this is a book. And he kind of laughed at me and, was like, that's really cool, like I've always wanted to write a book, like good for you for doing it. And he was nothing but supportive, and it just felt so strange at the time to think that, yes, okay, I was going to do this, I was going to write a book. And at the time, I had no idea how long a book should be. I had no idea the time, the effort, the soul that went into writing a book. But I went on this journey, and I quickly learned that I was capable of writing for 6 hours a day because I had not a lot else going on. My daughter was in daycare, my husband was at work, and I really just needed this process to find happiness again. And so I threw myself into it. I wrote for 6 hours a day, and I became so immersed in this world that I had created that I kind of forgot what the real world was like. And it turns out that was exactly what I needed at the time. I needed to escape from my reality and jump into someone else's. And it was so refreshing and just everything I needed, because in the moment where I was struggling the most, I was able to create this character who was struggling too. But in order to make a good book, she had to progress and she had to work through it. And so by taking her through her depression and her anxiety, I was able to see the light for myself. And I've gone to a few book clubs and I've spoken at different events, and the really fascinating thing about my book is that it takes place on several different worlds, and so she travels a lot, she gets around. And I never noticed this at the time, but when I was writing the book, I was going through a lot of prescription changes. And I can link it back now to every time she changed worlds, I had a change in prescription. And those changes would significantly shift my world. And so it's very cool to think that as my world was changing, yes, I wasn't changing galaxies and I wasn't changing planets, but my reality was changing. And so her reality and her worlds changed with me. And so that was very, very cool to recognize and realize. Another really cool part about my book is the support she finds in her friend Rickert. And my characters' name are Alexia, and then the other main character is Rickert. And he has mental powers that he's able to step into her mind or let her into his mind to show her mental skills to get her through her anxiety. And it's really powerful because at the time I was going through a lot of therapy, and I was, I was having someone step into my mind. I had my therapist, and she was there, and she was walking me through all of these different coping mechanisms, and it felt at times like she was way in my personal space and invading my mind. And I was able to give that kind of therapy to Alexia, in the sense that Rickard was able to step through things with her and show her a better way of managing. And ultimately, Alexia, I don't want to give away too much, but she comes into her own powers, and she finds a way to control what has controlled her for years, if not her whole adult life, and that is the anxiety that crippled her. And it was really neat to find that support in an external character and have her adopt a new way of thinking because of his support. And I like to think that Rickard is very much based on my husband. He was and is the support network that I needed at the time. And in him, he was able to support me through all of it that I was going through unconditionally, which was absolutely amazing and everything I needed to have in the moment. And it was through that support, in Alexia's case anyways, that she was able to overcome her struggles and her strife to get better and to be what others expected her to be. But not only that, but to be who she wanted to be. And in her, kind of coming of age story, she goes through an incredible transformation, and she becomes this person that she idolizes and she looks up to, and she's able to do things that she never would have thought possible. And that's primarily through her shift in mindset that she gets through her time in another galaxy and interacting with aliens from a whole bunch of different species and a bunch of different worlds. And she has this amazing transformation that when you have depression, if you want to come out of it, you have to go through these types of transformations. And when you're in the moment, when you're in the your deepest, darkest times, that transformation is impossible. You cannot see that in yourself, and it takes something different or some support to show you that it's possible. And I think when I was writing Alexia and pushing her past her limits so that she would grow, I had to do that for myself as well, because I wasn't able to take a character through recovery unless I was going through it myself. And when I look back on it, I'm so thankful that I was able to put words to my feelings and to not make it about me, because I wasn't writing in first person. I wasn't writing about myself. I was writing about someone else, but it's no secret that she was me. Different name, but she was me. And that was so powerful, to be able to put words to someone else's situation and make them go through it in a way that I had to go through it too. And when I came out of the book, when I was done writing, it took me 3-4 weeks to write, 80,000 words, and I was done my first draft. I was basically a new person. I had hopes, I had dreams, I was looking forward to the future, I was excited about something. I can still remember the first time I handed a chapter to my husband and said, "Here, read this. I think I'm on to something great." Just how exciting that was. And it's hard to describe that feeling when you haven't lived it for yourself, but it's astounding. The idea of creating something from your own mind with your own hand and spending hours upon hours immersed in this world that you've created, and then the idea of sharing it with others. It was both simultaneously astounding and terrifying and exhilarating and a little bit mortifying, the idea that somebody might read this extremely personal part of me. And it was almost more nerve-wracking realizing that my family and friends were going to read it because I had put so much into it. I wasn't so worried that strangers were going to read my work because I've worked really hard over the years to make it so that strangers' opinions of me don't matter. It's my own opinion and those close to me that I value the most. And so when I thought of, my mom, my dad, my friends reading this book, it was very exposing in a way that I was bearing a part of my soul, and that they were going to see how I was struggling, but they were also going to see how I came out of it and how I was getting better and how my process for doing so. So nowadays when anyone asks me, wow, or not even asks me, but it gives me the comment of, wow, you wrote a book. Oh, I wish I could do that. I wholeheartedly tell people you can and you should. If there is any part of you that feels like you have a story to tell, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, if you're looking to process some feelings, some memories, whatever it might be, write it down. It doesn't have to lead to an 80,000 word novel. It could be a short story. And it could be just for you. You may never have to show it to anybody. But the power of writing down what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and if you're writing another character, making them go through something, is therapy all in itself. So if you can't afford therapy, then try writing it down, because it will force you to process whatever it is that's going on. And it can be a therapeutic process, and it's amazing, it's powerful, and that's why I got into the career that I'm in, of helping people write their stories and interviewing other people that have written their stories and the experts in the book marketing, editing field. I want to know all of the details. What does it take to bring other people into this incredible light and give them the opportunity to go through what I went through and reap all of the rewards? Anyways, that brings my solo session to an end. I hope you enjoyed, and in case you're wondering, my book is called The Defender. It is available on Amazon for purchase as an ebook, a hardcover, or a paperback. And I hope to see you next episode.